how we would run the scheme. You can't move around the corridors of Parliament in Canberra without tripping over a coalition minister whispering the scheme is unsustainable. I'm here today to tell you that is a lie. It is a lie born of power. The scheme is only threatened in its survival by the incompetent management of the current government. And if we change the government, then we eliminate a fair bit of the incompetence. And today we outline some of our policies on how we would run the scheme. The money's there, ladies and gentlemen. The money is there. The problem is, it's not being spent on the right priorities. We want to take out the excessive over-reliance of consultants at the top of the scheme. We want to lift the staff cap. We want to get behind the rank and file of the National Disability Insurance Agency. We will employ, if we are elected, another 380 staff in the agency who are trained just to lift the standards of the agency dealing with it. So when you want to deal with a person in the scheme, a manager in the scheme, you don't just live on this digital portal, pulling your hair out, never getting the same person to return your call twice. We'll make sure that there are humans at the end of the telephone line so we can start restoring dignity in the scheme. So we're going to improve the agency, we're going to stop the waste. The other thing we will do about stopping the waste is we will blitz the waiting list at the AAT. Whilst you'll always have the right to go to the AAT under a Labor government, we want to introduce alternative dispute resolution. We want to triage the waiting list of cases. We don't want people having to give up. We don't want to pay the top end of town lawyers. We'll just bring in smart people to work through, conciliate the matters, and we'll get rid of the backlog of matters. So we'll stop the waste. We intend to also improve the fundamental design of the scheme. First of all, by getting the initial plan right. If you get the initial plan right, then a lot of other things don't go wrong after that. If you get the initial plan wrong, then there's always problems with your dealings with the scheme from there on in. And one of the ways we'll get that plan right is we will put people with disability, we will put the disability back into the National Disability Insurance Scheme, so we'll have co-design on every decision we make. When it comes to it, less consultants, more people with disability and the people who work with them. So that'll be our principle, put the people back into the NDIS, boost efficiency. We're going to fix regional access by making a senior officer of the scheme responsible for reaching out to remote and regional communities. That will be a priority. And of course, what we will do is we will stop the unfair cuts. The only reason a lot of the cuts are happening is because the government can't run the scheme. So they just say no to the kids who need that extra early intervention. Because they can't run the scheme properly, what's happening is that a whole lot of people are going through a whole lot of unnecessary pressure. So we will improve the scheme. The NDIS was never conceived to be a second full-time job for people trying to deal with the scheme. We want to restore that trust, that sense that things are broken, we want to mend. Other things which we will do beyond improving the performance of the NDIS, pardon me, is we're going to increase advocacy funding. If you want to keep people safe in the scheme, fund the advocates.
That's right.
Government can never know. Government can never know everything that's happening, and unfortunately we haven't invented, if there was a bit of software which Steve Jobs could invent or someone from Silicon Valley could invent, which would allow a magical chip to tell you whenever someone was getting into trouble or whenever someone wasn't being looked after properly, no doubt government would go out and pay for it. But we don't have to wait for that to be invented. Because if we listen to the workforce, if we listen to the advocates, if we listen to people with disability, we've already got our system. But advocates are a fundamental part of the safety and the quality of the scheme. So I'm pleased to announce today an initial extra $10 million to fund our advocacy organisations, because that investment will save so much more, not only in terms of people's quality of life, but in terms of the scheme itself and making sure the money's getting to where it should go.